Lieutenant General Mahesh Benarnaike, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon. On behalf of my group, that is Group C, and Pakistan, I would like to thank for hospitality of Sri Lankan Army and providing us with the opportunity to learn from each other's experiences. I would also like to thank Dr. Radhika Kumaraswamy and Major General J.R. Kulatunga for sharing their ideas during group discussion. So whatever I am going to, we both are going to present, that is an outcome of group dynamics. As you are aware, our group has been asked to dwell upon complex issues of empowering community to counter violent extremism. Being a complex issue, there is no universal and simplistic solution. Mainly due to diversity of cultures and belief of global community, or we can also call global communities. With this very assertion, let me try to make an effort to agitate your mind by defining community, which is linchpin of every effort and basis of recognition, and presently, as described by Dr. Radhika, victim of ambivalence or confusion. The sequence which shall be followed is as flashed. Community is a group of people living in the same place or having a particular characteristics in common. So a community in a nation state can be cohesive or can also be fractured. Now coming over to the second important thing, that is defining extremism. So I'll quote Dr. Sebastian Gorka, who says that fundamentalism, any person or group that adhere to certain principles for leading life that is giving meaning to his or her life is a fundamentalist. So practically everyone out of us is a fundamentalist, and we all adhere to certain principles in our life. Then is a radical. Any individual or group that weighs life or sees everything from a narrowed perspective, maybe it is of religion or culture, is a radical. But let me be very straight here, radical is not a threat, because that is the perspective of that very individual or group. Problem is extremist. Extremist is any individual or group that tries to force its ideas on others, which can be fanaticism also, tyranny or competitiveness also, and it becomes a serious problem once that extremist tries to use force, that is violence. So with these basic definitions, let me agitate your mind again with referring to Burgess' model or concentric zone model. As per this model, what our group believe or what we have discussed, the hardcore elements or the extremists, they are not more than 7 to 10%. They are surrounded by 15 to 20% of violent elements, and remaining 80% to 75% is general public or followers, which follows a group or ideology because of certain benefits which are associated, or may be because of the fear factor. If a state fails to provide human security to its population. So with this we come to the basic question that is of empowering community in peace and conflict. So we dwelled, before I highlight what communities can do, we dwelled that whether the communities are empowered in contemporary environment. So this very question or this very assertion, you will find serious differences in different parts of the world. In few parts of the world, you find communities fully empowered, while in certain other parts of the world, and especially in the conflict zones, you will find communities in state of confusion or underpower. So what few of the things which we can assign to communities for community empowerment in peace and conflict are tabulated, but these under no way are the only things which we can give to the communities. So during conflict, both during peace and post, community can be engaged in humanitarian works, development works, social works. There can be awareness groups or the youth group which can be used to further your narrative or the national narrative, or they can act as interlocutors also. There can be security groups. But this very aspect, there are differences of opinion in our group also, because security, if you want to give weapons, this is a failed concept which was exercised in Syria by the superpowers, and ultimately those weapons were again used against them as well as in the region. And we can also use the community for inter-community dialogue. Then empowering community in peace. This is a proactive approach. It is not necessary that any country which is facing conflict, only that country has to take these steps. Because of the environment which are prevalent in the world or in the globe as of today, every state is supposed to ensure economic sustenance of its population, that is basis of human rights, ensure requisite education, to ensure that the community gels together and they are able to consume each other's ideas and they don't turn violent. Law and order has to be ensured so that extremists don't resort to violence and they don't get a free hand to force their ideas on others. Then reconciliation, which should, if there is a fractured community in a state, reconciliation should be a continuous process. There should be a narrative or a counter-narrative of the state, which should be legitimate. If the legitimacy of that narrative is questioned, then there will be problems. And that should be able to sustain itself also. So few of the challenges which have been highlighted are legitimacy, that is already dwelled upon, including narrative, securitization. It is especially in terms of over-securitization of the population, because that also results in violation of their human rights. Social deviance or the fault lines, they have to be addressed. Human rights, including civic rights, environment, which is prevalent over there, regulation of information, including social media, social tolerance, and inter-community harmony.
Thank you very much. Mine is a bit of end game as to how this can be overcome. First and the foremost, what we must understand is that this community is not someone outside our area or somewhere in some other country. It is our own brothers and sisters, our parents, and these are the people we are today talking about. So basically, to start off this, we must have empathy to see the broader perspective, how to harness the communities to bring about a de-radicalization process. So the issue here is, when someone says extremism, it did not come out from somewhere else. It is within the community. The community is in our village. I'm also part of the community. So we have to see from our doorstep, from our house, and see the broader perspective till this is understood and harped upon, and see the best way to find a solution. In that, finding a solution is not easy, as we all talked about, but there could be ways and means which can be used to bring about an end to this extremism. Extremism is not a never-ending story. It's an ending story, but we have to see how best we end it soon. In that, what we must realize is these are the few guiding principles we have talked about in our discussions, and these are called also as Sendai principles. This can be used to counter extremism in our community, and those are understand the threat posed and ways to radicalize. As I said, the community is us. We are part of the community, and we see what's happening around us. And we have to see who is this and how best we can understand them and how best we can identify the crowd who are getting extremist or radicalized. Thereafter, we have to set forth why they radicalized, and then take preventive measures or bring about understanding that this can be resolved by means of the local population or by means of the security apparatus or maybe at government level. The next is protect people and their civil rights. Now, while countering extremism, this will be happening again inside our own community. We'll be meeting the same people who we are moving with. They will be the enemies for us to see. So when we deal with them, the animosity can build up. So we have to see how best this can be minimized and meet the threat head on. So what I'm saying here is you have to protect the people. While protecting, you have to protect their civil rights or human rights also. So this goes hand in hand. You can't protect people without protecting their human rights. So that we have to understand. Next is building partnership. It can't be happen from one end. It has to happen. It has to be a partnership between the communities, civil society in general, this particular community, and the non-governmental organizations, and finally the security apparatus and the government. So they all have to get involved and see the best way forward to achieve the results of resolving this extremism. Then the good governance. Why this good governance is, why people get radicalized or why they go into extremes is because they don't see a future ahead of them. They don't see anything goodness ahead of them. And that has to be governed by the government itself. So here the major issue is good governance. If the government can give the people sustenance, a way of sustenance, and obviously their motives will change. They won't resort to extremism, or actually they will find a way to spend their time. Ultimately, it's about the time. When they have the time useless, they will use it for a purpose of uselessness. So basically, extremism also in substantive way is useless, and the government also has to play a role. The next is support local people or the leaders. Now here we find the community leaders are there, and they have to play a major role in the entire issue. So if this can be harnessed and if this can be used in the broader perspective, the first steps towards radicalization can be stopped. It has to be stopped at the earliest possible time. So the security apparatus cannot go that far. The initial effort has to be the community leaders. So that's one thing. Then avoid stigmatize. Now once we identify these people, or maybe a group, or maybe a community where there is extremism, they should not be given a partial approach, or rather they should not be pointed at. They should be given opportunities to fall back and think of de-radicalize or think of rehabilitation. This is one aspect. I can bring out the instance of in Sri Lanka soon after the war. We also had 12,000 LTT cadres, they were de-radicalized, they were rehabilitated, they were reintegrated, and the entire thing comes from this aspect, where they were given the opportunity to live again, a better life. So only thing here, the entire community, the other interested parties in the rehabilitation process has to give them that strength to aspire again. And government plays a vital role to see that they achieve that aims. The next is religious beliefs. Everybody in this world will have a religious belief, and it is a personal thing. It doesn't reach out to others. That should not be object to consider somebody an extremist. Extremist comes from various other aspects, maybe geopolitics, maybe the community has some interest or difficulties or differences, and this ultimately end up as a extremist notion. So religious, we all have our beliefs and we all have to practice that, but that should not be the cause for extremism. Extremism, as said by various speakers, is a different agenda altogether. Legitimacy of government policy, as again, what the government will do to these communities matters, and it should be a transparent, very corroborative agenda where all will accept it. The moment the government agenda is not accepted, then there are possibilities that people resort to other means to achieve their desired goals. Then the community engagement. This is the most important. This is the community we all talk about. We have to engage ourselves to achieve the desire to de-radicalize not only the community, not only the townships, maybe the entire country. This is a long process. But then again, we have to understand that this all starts from one man or one community or one country.
You have 2 more minutes.
At the end, conclusion, what I want to say is, this extremism is not something brought or imported from somewhere, somebody. It was based on our own community, our own people. They resort to these things, and maybe there are the age matters, the thinking matters, and the aspirations matters. So if the stakeholders in this entire process make an issue and give them that opportunity to aspire and give them another chance to live a better life, I'm sure that this process or this talk of extremism can be resolved amicably. Thank you.